And we're back here at the World Equestrian Center in Ocala, Florida for another DEKA Mile World Championship event here, part of the 2024 DEKA Fit World Championship weekend. It's time for the co-ed team relay. I am Xander Keene, joined now by Jason Dupree, back on the mic, multitasking, managing the camera switching and replay editing and everything else, also hopping on the mic as Luke Halterman, our normal broadcast partner, is himself racing in this event. So we've had an exciting day of DEKA Mile action so far. The individual races this morning, female and male divisions back-to-back. We already had the elite female team race as well about a little over an hour ago, and now we're set for the co-ed event here coming up. And so, Jason, we've already seen with this DEKA Mile, obviously it's a shorter, more intense, less running, more station work. The stations are a bigger portion of the race as opposed to yesterday's DEKA Fit, and that leads to tight competition, and that we've seen in pretty much every race so far today.
Yeah, inside of these zones, they get a lot tighter, get a lot more crowded, and we've even seen where they're coming around the corner of that big box, some little bumping going around there. It's been exciting.
Yeah, there's age group heats out there on the course right now. I think those relays are finishing up, and yeah, the DEKA Mile, again, kind of the in-between format here in DEKA Fit of the three different versions. So 160 meters of running in between each station, and obviously we've seen some strong teams as well. We'll see, I think, headlined, we've got Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke, who between them, I believe, have 5 podiums so far out of 6 possible races, and then Kevin Gregory will be racing as well, and plenty of talented teams on this list. So yeah, Kevin Gregory is going to be racing with Kayla Cittadino, and we look at those are the top 2 teams in terms of seed time. So Katie Duke and Grayson Kilgore, of course, training together, strategizing together out there in Idaho, a 14:09. Kayla and Bubbles, 14:33. Now we don't have the next couple of teams, so the third place seed in terms of people who are here are Carmen Woods and Tony Seidel, and then Angelica Garcia and Ryan Castillo right behind them. So a lot of very tight competition. Those seeds, I think 5 through 8, I believe, are all racing here as part of those teams. So, it's interesting, as we've talked about throughout the day with the DEKA Mile, throughout the course of the year, you're racing at gym setups. You're not necessarily, racing against other elite teams at the same time. So it's interesting that these teams have put together very close times in their individual setups, and now we'll see how that unfolds together in a team environment on the same course at the same time.
Right, there could always be some differences between those different courses, so you never really know. So the way it's going to play out here could be a lot different than you would just expect, just based off of times, just because you just have no idea what their setups were like compared to the other places. But it is interesting and cool that we've got here the top times for the year, and we do actually have 2 teams, because in the other teams races we've seen so far where we didn't have any of those 2 combinations from the top teams. Everybody's getting somebody else to race with that they qualified with. So that's pretty cool for this one.
Yeah, the only one that we're missing here is Alex Walker and Brandon Bonine. And then Amber Tate is not racing with Jesse Bruce, who she was seated 4th with. She's actually racing with Brian Neely. They put up a time together that I think ranked 7th or 8th on that list, about a 15:30. So this should be exciting. I think until proven otherwise, Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke are probably the favorite given the way that they've raced this weekend. But, so far Kevin Gregory has not found himself on top of the podium. And especially after last year and, what he's known for and his work in team races with his partners, he's got to be hungry for that top spot at some point today.
I know. I talked to him a little bit earlier, and he was disappointed with that 4th place yesterday. He was proud about how they worked themselves back into it, but yeah, I definitely feel like we're going to see him crush a lot harder here with the shorter course.
Yeah, yesterday in the co-ed, Kevin and Kat Fossbender, who had just gotten 2nd place in the individual female, they got 2nd place behind Grayson and Katie, and then Kevin and Connor Bell ended up in 4th place in the male, a very exciting male team race. I mean, that race set the tone for the weekend, I think. We'll see what the male DEKA Mile race can do coming up here. But, we've seen so far today fresh legs kind of take over. All 3 of these races have been won with at least, whether the individuals or one team member, with someone who hadn't raced yesterday. And here now we've got Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke. This is each of their fourth race of the weekend so far. And, we've talked to them now 2 or 3 times, in post-race interviews, and it's the little things for them that they've gone through. It's not just the strategy of the race, but it's preparing for the entire weekend and the fueling. They're not necessarily fueling for the race that they're doing. They're fueling for what they're going to need tomorrow with the totality of the week. And it's interesting to see how they can keep that up throughout the remainder of this race. We get a look here. Again, some of these age group teams are getting after it. Of course, that's the great thing about this DEKA FIT World Championship weekend is there's always some action. It's a little bit of a lull right now as the course is getting cleared up for the most part for these elite teams. But, from the beginning of the day all the way now and all the way up to the elite male team race that will be the final race of the day just after 5 p.m., pretty much constant action. And there's always something happening. The majority of athletes are competing multiple times over the course of this weekend. Of course, you've got a lot of groups that travel together or come together from the same gym, all supporting each other throughout the course of the weekend. That's been cool to see. We've had some familiar faces racing multiple times in elite races, but also some new names. We saw in the elite female race, Adrian Gully and Ali Zartman kind of come out of nowhere. They're very new to the sport. They're also from Idaho, so Idaho representation on the podium just about every race so far this weekend. But it'll be interesting to see. I think this co-ed race, as we say, just about like every race here, set up for an exciting finish. I think the thing with the DEKA Mile that we've seen, especially the very beginning of the race, is where it gets interesting because, again, the format here, the first and last run, everyone has to do together. Outside of that, you can split up the work however you want. So there's just a lot of humanity on the course at the same time at the start of the race. And I think we've seen, Jason, that so far today, the winners in the DEKA Mile, generally speaking, have not necessarily been in first place on that first run. It's more pacing yourself a little bit, not trying to get out over your skis, knowing that there's a lot of work to be done. Like, you obviously want to be going hard, but you make sure you don't want to tip over early on when you both have to run right at the beginning.
Yeah, for the female team race, that Tara came out of the first, not the lunges, but I think it was the second zone that they came out quite a bit, seconds really, but it looked like they were way behind. And then obviously they made up tons of ground after that.
Yeah, these experienced teams just kind of over the course of the race, there may not be necessarily one station where they make a move. We saw that kind of in the individual races as well, where both Tara Jackson and Rylan Shadig, the two individual winners, they just sort of over the course of time got a lead, extended it, and by the middle of the race, it then became clear that, unless something completely unexpected happens, this is their races to lose. And, we sort of saw that in the team race as well with Tara and her partner, Marissa Pope. They just executed well over the course of the race, and by the time they came out of the skier, it was clear that, they had about a 10, 15-second lead, and that eventually expanded to 40 seconds over the course of the race. And we'll find out here coming up in just a few minutes when this race gets underway, if that's going to be the same thing in this co-ed situation.
And speaking of Tara and Rylan, do you think it was more their stations or more their running? I know Tara, she was cruising on the runs. Do you think it was a combination, or they really just had a strength on one or the other?
I mean, I think it was a combination. Rylan, it looked like, he's always a front runner. He's someone who's not afraid to take it out to the extent that he can. I mean, he didn't necessarily blow away the field right from the very first run, but, he may not have had the fastest split on any of the stations. I think Grayson Kilgore made up a little bit of time on Rylan on the bike, but Rylan was just able to get ahead, and I think it was the totality of that effort over the course of the race as opposed to one station, because, the thing with 160 meters of running at one time, there's not a lot of time to really get up to your full speed, right? And you're running, for 10, 15 seconds, and then you're turning. Run. It's a fast run with 280-degree turns, so it's hard to really open up on the run. It's more just pushing the effort and making sure that you don't fall off on the run. And from, both the individual winners and the team winners we've seen, it's, really maintaining that level of effort throughout the course of the race and withstanding the stations is what sets you up very well.
Yeah, trying to follow them from station to station. It's like in the FIT, it's like, okay, they leave out of the station and you've got a bit of time to watch the rest of the teams and the people finish that station. But here, they get out of the station, and it's right away that you got to jump over to the next zone.
Yeah, especially if a team kind of takes the lead, then it gets to the point where the leader might be starting the next station even before the second place team finishes the previous one, because these runs are so quick.
I think we've got about a minute or so before we should start to see the athletes heading to the start line.
Yeah, this will be getting underway pretty soon. So again, as we've talked about, these elite co-ed teams, the majority of the top 10 are here, which is great. I think we had the third seeded team is not here in Alex Walker and Brandon Bonine. And again, the fourth place team was Amber Tate and Jesse Bruce. Amber racing with Brian Neely, who she qualified with as well. They were in the top 10. So this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, you think that, you're watching the women, you would think that it can't get much crazier than this, but it just obviously levels up. Co-ed and then men, and just every race is intense and more intense than you would think it would be.
Yeah, and we saw that yesterday, and it's funny. It went in that order, right, in terms of separation. Where I think the elite women's race was decided a little bit earlier, and then I think we had Grayson and Katie, and then Kevin and Kat were on the burpees right about the same time, and then of course the men's race came down to quite literally a photo diving finish across the line last night. We'll see if that plays out again here as the races get shorter. The margins get thinner. We've seen, multiple times in the last couple of years in the DEKA Strong, very close finishes as well. And we're now seeing that in the mile. I think just the growth of this sport, this is really the third sort of full year of DEKA Fit. And just over time, as both the current athletes get more experience and more time to fine tune their race strategies, and the new athletes come in and find the sport and demonstrate their ability, it levels up everybody, and that's going to lead to more and more closer races. These elite fields are going to be harder and harder to qualify into, and it just raises the level of competition for everybody.
How old is DEKA Fit at this point?
I believe they did a test event, I'm pretty sure, in the beginning of 2020, and then obviously everything shut down for about a year. I know the first World Championship was 2022. They may have come back with a couple of races in 21. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely growing, and it's expanding, of course, internationally now. We've seen a number of Spanish athletes come across and participate both at the elite and age group level. They have a very strong contingent in the DEKA Fit, and then we've seen some of those athletes in the mile as well. So we've got our teams on the start line now. So again, you see Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke right there in the middle. Grayson with no shirt on, the black shorts. Katie, the red top and black shorts. Kevin Gregory in the blue Underdog Fitness top. He is racing with Kayla Citadino.
Amber Tate on the left there. Who's she racing with?
Amber Tate's racing with Brian Neely, and that's Brian standing sort of all the way to the left in the front row. You've got Chelsea Grant and Pat Millington there on the right. Chelsea with tattoos, and Pat, I believe that would be her race partner in the lighter shorts. So that's kind of the front row.
Jacob, raise the camera up so we don't cut off Bubbles' head with the race clock.
And one shout out, of course, Luke Halterman and Bree Schrader. Luke has been joining me on the majority of the broadcast. He's raced a couple of times already tonight. So we've got our final instructions apparently being given by Kevin Gregory as he and Grayson, I don't know if they're talking about making sure the course is clear or whatnot, but we're just about set to go here.
Use your thumbstick. There you go. Other way.
A lot of Saucony Endorphin Pros on the feet of these athletes. Not Bubbles, though. Bubbles is going to race in Ultras. So of the top 2 co-ed teams yesterday, 3 of those 4 athletes are in the front row here. Again, Grayson and Katie, training partners, coach athlete. 5 podiums between them so far. And we're just about set to go as we are underway here in this elite team co-ed DEKA Mile World Championship. This one is going to be fast and furious, as again, these athletes are going to catch up very quickly to some of the age group competitors still on the course. Be interesting to see how this plays out over the first couple of stations. You know, I think some of these other teams know what both Kevin Gregory and Grayson Kilgore are capable of on the bike. The question is, does somebody try and get ahead enough to make the bike matter a little bit less? So Brian Neely and Amber Tate, they maybe are taking that approach. They were the first ones in the station. You see Amber there going through the lunges, Brian with the baton. Wouldn't expect many of these top teams to be switching here.
Did we see any switch also in the women's race?
I don't think so. At least, again, not among, you know, the top sort of 5 or 6 teams that are easiest to see based on the camera angle. So,
ooh, they're out.
Looks like Kayla was able to finish faster as Kevin Gregory was the first man out. And yeah, Brian Neely is going to absolutely let it fly on this run, try and put as much time in between himself and Kevin Gregory as possible. There's Pat Millington behind in 3rd place. Now the other athletes get situated on the rower. You can see the rest of the top 5, 6, 7. So whoa. Kevin is in, tagging his partner. And the difficulty here with the judges,
trying to look at the getting, and they're running into each other, the partners too. That is really tricky.
Yeah, the challenge here is, you know, you sort of claim your spot, but then the first person out of the last station isn't necessarily the first person into this one. And so, you know, that's why Kayla was able to get that first rower on the right, but then because Brian passed Kevin on the run, he then had to cut all the way inside and tag his partner Amber. So a very quick switch there between Chelsea Grant and Pat Millington.
Katie Duke looking like she's ready to run.
Yeah, we're seeing what we expect to be 2 of the top teams. They're male athletes rowing in the front row. That's Kevin Gregory on the right in the blue shirt and Grayson Kilgore in the black shorts on the left. Again, they were Grayson, part of the first place team yesterday, and then Kevin Gregory and his partner Kat Fossbender 2nd place in the co-ed relay in yesterday's DEKA Fit. Hard to tell what they're rowing from here, but I'd imagine it starts with a 1-3, as these guys are really, you know, knowing that their female partner is going to be on the next run, doing what they can to sell out as much as possible on the rower here. So Kevin finishes, and Kayla is back out on the run in 1st place, and Chelsea Grant out in 2nd, Amber Tate right behind her, and there's Katie Duke. So we have 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all within about 2 or 3 seconds of each other. Kayla Cittadino in 1st place. Now we've got a few other teams. I see Luke coming out there, I think in 6th or 7th. And yeah, Jason, this is an example of, you know, by the time you get settled from one station, you got to move over to the next one, because we're about to have someone get tagged in. There it is. Kayla finishes the run, and Kevin Gregory is on to the box stepovers.
It's hard to manage.
Yeah, you saw there Katie Duke kind of cutting in front of Brian Neely to get all the way back to hers. So right now, Amber Tate on the left, Kevin Gregory on the right. And Chelsea Grant in that 2nd row on the right. She is working her way through as well.
Amber Tate is known for having some of the fastest box jumps in the women's field, right?
I believe so. Yeah, you can see that very efficient movement. Really, all these athletes, no wasted steps, and now they're back out on the run. I mean, we're already approaching the halfway point of this race, at least in terms of the running. Obviously, some of the longer stations are still to come. And this, again, is interesting just with the dynamics of, when does the male athlete run? When does the female athlete run? Because we're seeing Brian Neely just absolutely chew up the field here.
Who was in first?
I think that was Brian.
Yep.
Brian was the first man in, and so Amber was able to start her sit-ups before anybody else. But then you've got Kevin and Grayson in front, so it's kind of like opposite right now where for Chelsea and
I guess
Amber,
whoever's able to get out of the previous zone first is able to get over there and claim their spot.
Right, and so we've seen where in those cases the female athletes have been able to the male athlete finishes the station first, the female athlete then might get taken over, and so that's why we're seeing the flip-flopping between 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so again, Brian Neely getting after it here.
He is flying. Yeah, like you said earlier, that little turnaround, you gotta slow down there a little bit so you don't fall down, and then you got to get back to it. It's tough.
So you see the rest of this field coming through, but our race leaders are over at the ski erg now. And I think Brian actually went straight in from the run. So the way that they're approaching that, again, Brian Neely and Amber Tate there on the right. The way they approached it is Brian did the run and then went and started immediately.
I think Brian and Amber, they're making a run for it.
Yeah, they just switched off. So far, Kevin Gregory doing majority of the skiing for his team with Kayla Cittadino. Again, you're seeing Brian do the majority of the running for this team. And so far, it's paying off as they've been able to hang in there.
Keaton, if you hear me, double check, make sure you're not connected to the public Wi-Fi. Might be okay.
So Kevin and Kayla did trade off there.
Another trade.
Another transition between Brian and Amber. And it looks like I think Kevin Gregory is doing more of the skiing than Brian is. So that might allow them to catch up in terms of just overall time on this station. But it's anyone's race at this point. We've got, obviously every team in there now. This one of the longer stations is going to be, the better part of a minute 40.
Do you think they're switching off like every was it?
Probably 100 meters or so, yeah. Get three or four switches in, and then obviously setting it up to where whoever's going to do the next run gets a little bit of rest, 25, 30 seconds. So Brian Neely is out. Chelsea Grant out. Kevin Gregory out as well. And I think I heard them call Katie Duke coming out herself. So again, our top 3-4 teams are all in it because we still have the bike, we still have the sled push and pull to come. There's Bree Schrader finishing up, Luke Halterman back on the run as well. Brian Neely, Katie Duke are both in. Here comes Chelsea Grant and Kevin Gregory behind her. So now Amber Tate is going to absolutely fly with these dumbbells. Again, in most cases, I would say in most cases you see the female athlete with the farmer's carry because it's lighter, but we actually do see Pat Millington and Grayson Kilgore. Now Grayson and Katie just switched off.
Amber's still rolling.
And Amber is absolutely flying through this. I think, see Brian holding the baton. He's probably getting ready to run another hard 160. Brian Neely is the first person out of this zone. Looks like Katie Duke is about to finish, I believe, her last one, and she's going to head right back out on the run. Kayla Cittadino and Chelsea Grant. So 2, 3, 4 teams all have their female athlete running right now. Brian Neely away in first place. He's handling just about all the running for this team. coming into the assault bike, and we'll see how they split this up. There on the inset screen is Katie Duke. We see some of the other teams finishing their farmer carry. Again, here's 2, 3, and 4. Katie Duke, Chelsea Grant, Kayla Citadino. And now we see Amber Tate getting after it on the bike. Expect her to go maybe 10, 12 calories. And now here we go, because we have Grayson Kilgore and Pat Millington on the bike. Now we have a transition. Brian Neely takes over. Grayson is getting absolutely cooked up here on the backside. Kevin Gregory as well. So this might be a game-changing station. We'll see, as Kevin Gregory is done.
Holy
and
cow.
So there it is. Kayla Citadino in first place. Grayson Kilgore finishes. So here we go.
Just after him.
The bike is the game changer, as our top 2 teams that were seeded fastest use the bike as a weapon. And now all of a sudden, Kayla Citadino in first place. On the backstretch coming around. And Brian Neely is still working. So I think right now you're seeing the impact of Brian doing the majority of the running and now having to work on the bike. It happened too fast to really get the split times. So I'm not sure what Grayson and Kevin split on the bike, but let me tell you, it was fast, because this went from a 4-team race to a 2-team race instantaneously.
Need eyes in the ball, the sit-ups. Or the ball overs. They're still running. Here they come. Oh, they're in there. There's Grayson. And Kevin.
Yeah, you see Grayson, Kilgore, and Kevin Gregory working through dead ball overs. Now a transition as Katie Duke takes over. Not sure of the rep counts here. So Kayla Citadino is out. So Kevin Gregory and Kayla Citadino continuing to lead. Now Katie finishes Grayson Kilgore back out on the run. 8 stations down, 2 to go. As Grayson Kilgore is going to try and chase down Kayla Citadino. You see that there on the inset screen. There's Kayla running the opposite direction. And now here comes Grayson Kilgore trying to catch up. This might all come down to the sled.
She's got a decent lead there. I think she looks faster than Grayson.
There's Kayla Citadino around the corner, and Grayson Kilgore comes in right behind her. Grayson, a great job to catch up, and now
that was really close.
Katie Duke trying to sell out and hang with Kevin Gregory on these sled push and pulls.
So they are still switching off and changing the weight, the resistance.
Yeah, I think realizing that this is going to come down to a burpee off, they're doing what they can to switch off, but Katie Duke taking another length here. She's doing at least 2 in a row. And now Grayson will take over. So Grayson Kilgore's had a little bit of a rest. Now gets ready to put power through those legs and try and push and pull this sled as fast as possible. Another adjustment. Kevin Gregory back on it. Grayson Kilgore trying to chase him down. Who's got the most left in the tank? These are our top 2 teams. The bike was the game changer. This went from a 4-team race. It then became clear it was going to be a 2-team race. So they are out. Kevin Gregory and Kayla Citadino out on their last run. And I think Grayson Kilgore finishing right now. How fast can he and Katie run? Actually, no, they've got one more. And so Kevin Gregory and Kayla Citadino are away here. Thought that was going to be their last length, but it wasn't. And so now.
Wow, this is a good lead.
Kevin Gregory just through his final 100 meters of running here in this race, trying to get down to the burpees.
Grayson and Katie are out now. They still got a hold down and back to go.
So here we go. 20 burpees are all that stands between Kevin Gregory and Kayla Citadino in a world championship. And they are looking strong right now. Kayla powerful through these burpees as Kevin Gregory just tries to get whatever rest he can and he'll take over now.
Katie's coming in quick. Just a moment.
Yeah, here comes Katie Duke, Grayson Kilgore right behind his teammate. So they're looking solid for second place, but I think it's going to be too much to overcome as Kevin looks powerful on these burpees. I know Katie can burpee very quickly if she's done all weekend, but right now I think it looks like 2 or 3 more reps for Kevin Gregory and Kayla Cittadino, and maybe one more. And there it is. Kayla sets the ram down, and your DEKA Mile co-ed team world champions, Kevin Gregory, Kayla Cittadino, as now Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke look to secure another podium position. And now we've got a burpee off for 4th place. So Pat Millington and Amber Tate are right now doing their burpees. Their teammates, Chelsea Grant and Brian Neely, are waiting, ready to take over. So Grayson Kilgore on the left side of the screen finishing up. They're done. So that's another podium finish for Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke.
We had some synchronous burpees here for a moment.
And
It's
so
like they're
now,
syncing back up.
yeah, so now Brian Neely and Chelsea Grant. Brian Neely on the left, Chelsea Grant on the right, selling out as much as possible, not sure of the count. So as they approach 16 minutes, the second half of these burpees, podium position on the line here. And now Amber Tate will take over.
Looks like Amber might be finishing it out.
And now Chelsea Grant and Pat Millington take 3rd place as they work through their burpees, about a rep and a half ahead of 4th place, Brian Neely and Amber Tate. I'll tell you what, Brian and Amber went for it. They went for it. They led for the first half of this race, and they didn't quite build enough of a lead to withstand the assault bike as Kevin Gregory and Grayson Kilgore did that work and catapulted their teams into 1st and 2nd place respectively. And now we've got a few of the other teams. Luke Halterman and Bree Schrader, they're in the front. They're finishing it off. Got another team across the line there. And now we've got just a host of teams. I mean, the time gaps for this back half of the top 10 are going to be very, very narrow as the remainder of our teams finish up here momentarily. And Luke Halterman will hand off to Bree Schrader. I think they're probably in the second half of their reps as well. And they're across the line about 17:31 for Luke and Bree. So we'll hear from Luke at least later on in the next broadcast, but I think they'll hopefully be happy with that performance.
So we had Amber and Brian in the front for a while there, right?
Yeah, they went for it. You know, Brian Neely was doing almost all the runs for that team. I think that's a different strategy than we saw deployed by most of the other teams that either split it up or had the female athlete running more. But Brian was able to make up a lot of time on those runs, but they just couldn't quite build enough of a lead so that, just not as strong on the bike. And, they transitioned, right? Amber Tate started on the bike, handed it off to Brian, whereas Grayson and Kevin Gregory, they were recovered, sitting ready. Their teammates tagged them in, and that was the game changer for sure. I think the only downside was that with the way the Rabbits were positioned, we only saw Kevin in the background. We saw Grayson hammering the bike and then Kevin behind him, and then all of a sudden Kevin's teammate wasn't there. It was so quick that, by the time you realized that he was starting, he was then done. And yeah, Zone 11 is undefeated as all these elite co-ed teams that laid it out on the line just doing what they can to catch their breath.
Good job, big guy.
And there's Kevin Gregory and Pat Millington. Pat, one of these athletes we haven't seen, at least in the elite heats so far this weekend. So I'm not sure if he had competed in an age group before then or not. But either way, he helped propel his team to a 3rd place position along with his teammate Chelsea Grant.
Love it. Well, I know Bubbles will want to come talk to us. He probably feels like he hasn't done that enough yet this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, it's the first place that he's got. Again, second place with Kat Fossbender yesterday in the co-ed team fit. But, as the distance gets shorter, it becomes more and more in Bubbles' wheelhouse, and we saw that here. Kevin Gregory doing enough on the stations, or enough on the run, I should say, and then using his ability on the stations to power his team to victory. It's always nice when the race plays out in the way that it seemed like it might on paper. We talked about the top two seeded times.
Whenever y'all get a chance, interview.
Expecting Grayson Kilgore and Kevin Gregory to make an impact on the stations. They did just that. But fast and furious race. I mean, I don't think we've seen this many lead changes in any race like this up until now. And, the first half of the race, it was back and forth. Just because you had some teams with the male athlete running more, kind of able to take the lead there. Other teams where the female athlete was running then were faster on the stations, and that back and forth way that it played out really maintained all the way through the farmer's carry up until the air bike. And that's when the decisive moves were made.
That was quick, man.
Yeah, it's amazing with the DEKA mile, and the strong will be even more so, but it's like the mile, with the DEKA Fit, right, there's time to get into sort of the rhythm of the race, and you get a sense of how it's playing out, and you watch it unfold over the course of 30 minutes, but you condense everything into more or less half the time. And, yeah, it's like by the time we get an idea of who the top 2 or 3 teams are, they're already approaching the farmer's carry, and you're more than halfway through the race.
We're going to have a good replay of Bubbles and Grayson starting the bike about the same time.
Yeah, this was definitely the pivotal part of this race. As I can see Jason sitting to my right, getting that teed up. It's hard enough to manage the camera work, and it's hard enough to commentate, let alone doing both at the same time. So while Luke was racing, Jason admirably filling in here on the broadcast.
Yeah, I could use a person just to do instant replay stuff.
Yeah, that's the note for next year. If we can recruit more behind-the-scenes people, and that'll make it happen even more. And there's one half of the championship team in Kevin Gregory, man of the people. I'm sure the number of pictures he'll have taken by the end of this weekend will be in the hundreds for sure.
All right, Bubbles is heading our way.
Amazing on the big screen, man. Okay.
Getting a shot with a fan.
I don't know if there's an official award for who knows the most people out of anybody here at DEKA FIT, but Gregory is the unofficial leader in the clubhouse there.
We're going to pass the headphones over to... Oh, sorry. Here we go. Going to pass the headphones over to some athletes once they get over here.
Looks like we're just getting situated. They got a couple minutes to catch their breath. as we get things coordinated here on the back end. All right, now we are getting situated with our co-ed team champions. Good to see you all again. Sure.
Hi, fans.
He's back, and he's one step higher on the podium compared to yesterday.
Oh, way better.
Congratulations, guys. I guess, first of all, Kevin, you raced against Katie and Grayson yesterday. We saw the outcome of that. You mentioned that you had taught Grayson how to do the bike better. So I think you probably want to give him a little bit of revenge today.
Yeah, I knew he wasn't going to let me beat him for good on the bike today. So I knew I got to get him on the tank today because I didn't teach him those tricks. And thank you. So that's where we needed to be after the bike with like a half-step lead. And I knew Kayla a little bit bigger and stronger than Katie, and I'm bigger and stronger than Grayson. So we had to make up that gap that they were going to get us on the last run on the tank alone. We got into burpees, a nice little lead, and we decided to bring it home.
Yeah, and we saw, a lot of lead changes earlier, right? Some of the teams decided to have their male athlete do more of the running, and they were able to sort of make up some more ground. And Brian Neely was absolutely hammering the entire race. But I feel like, given the experience that you have and you guys having raced together, were you just comfortable letting the other teams do their thing and sticking to your plan?
Kayla, you share your perspective. I talk a lot.
It was hard for me because as you saw this morning in the individual, I am not the best compromised runner by any means. This is my second mile teams race ever. So to be able to race with the world champion was freaking exciting. And so I knew that they were going to run faster than me, but we had the station so dialed down, and the back half of our race is our race. So I just had to pull it in and make sure we had enough in the tank to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we were, Jason and I at the start of the broadcast were talking about, the fastest times coming in. We saw what you and Grayson did on some of the stations yesterday, and I think we were surprised with how hard some of the teams took. But I guess, if you've got your opportunity, you've got to go for it, and that's what they did. But for you all to stick to your plan, and it just seemed like, it seemed like you were comfortable being in third, fourth place, whatever it was, coming into the bike, and then it was interesting for our perspective because the top three teams were all on one side, and then, Kevin, you were on the other side. So it was like by the time we noticed that you had started, all of a sudden you were gone because he had finished, and then that's when we knew, okay, the race has just changed.
Yes.
So yeah, you put two excellent, strong athletes together, and neither of us is a bad runner in general, but when you line up these super world-class runners against us, we look slow as shit, but we knew our strengths were to hit the stations and do them in a way, and we broke them up in a way where when one of us wasn't doing the station, we had to give it our best on that compromise run and just hang in there because we knew by the end of the day, in this race specifically, the stations are 50% of the run, where yesterday it was a third of the run.
Yep.
And yesterday that cost me and Kat because the runners had 2/3 of the race to make up the time. We beat them on the stations, where today Kayla and I superior at the stations. Now we're playing an even game. Fast runners, fast stations, it's battle of who's the best at what they do.
And not only are the runs shorter, but because of the 180-degree turns, it's like the really strong runners, they don't have enough time, and by the time they get up to their full stride, they're stopping and then turning again.
Yep.
So it's like you guys were able to use those stations effectively there. So yeah, I guess you all qualified with one of the top times. You have experience working together. Was there anything that you changed as far as how you had been planning the race earlier on in the year as opposed to what you did today, or did you have a plan and stick to it?
We didn't really change anything. We know both of us for us to do our best strong, we need to remain calm, and Kayla has a cucumber tattoo on her wrist and wherever it is. And when today, we didn't plan to fumble the baton. We didn't plan to get run over on one of the passes when someone else was meandering in and ran over Kayla and couldn't get to me. And then, when you drop the baton, you hope it's a grab and go. It was a grab, a kick, a chase, a hand to drop, a bounce, a leave, and then chase down. And I don't think I could have done that with many other people. Both of us, we know we need to stay calm in the chaos. And that's the only reason we were able to overcome that. We didn't end up at 180 heart rate after that. We were like, okay, we fix it? It happened. How do we react? Let's stay calm. All right, we fixed it. We're back on track. Our plan is going as it's supposed to. My race plan's out there on the course somewhere. It fell out of my pocket in the first run. So I was like, hey, do you remember what we're supposed to do here? Yeah, you're running next. Okay, cool. Like, same thing. I'm not freaking out because I lost the plan. Trust my partner. She remembered, and if we didn't, we would have talked through it and been comfortable and confident. Our chemistry's there, and that's why we won today.
Yeah, and speaking of the chaos, I think one other thing that we noticed is just the way that you all were splitting it up versus some of the other teams where, Kevin, if you finished the station, you were able to set up in one of the first lanes in the next station. So all of a sudden you had a faster runner coming in having to dodge around people, whereas you could just come in and tag him in. And it seemed like that was, again, one of those little things that helped pay off for you guys.
That's experience. I didn't have that benefit in the men's race yesterday. My game plan didn't provide for that. So Connor and I had to go to the back corner, and that cost us. I mean, we lost by 30 seconds. And if you add up all the transitions we had to go to the back corner, that's about 30 seconds. Even though we were very inferior on the run. Our run time was like 2.5, 3 minutes slower, but we still only 30 seconds off for the final time. So,
yeah, I think yesterday we sort of didn't lose sight of you guys, but it's kind of hard to tell. As the race unfolds, you start focusing a little bit more on the podium, and all of a sudden you guys ended up in fourth place. So it's like, where did that come from? Obviously we know the back half of the race and some of the stations is where you all can make an impact. But, yeah, it was fun to watch, very exciting, great to see you. I'm sure you're happy to be on the very top of the podium and for you to get on there as well. It was awesome to see. So thanks for stopping by, and congratulations.
Welcome. Glad I picked a partner this year. I didn't have a running background, and
It worked.
hey, you're at the gym. You just ran like 5 races. You want to team up, see if we can put a qual time in? Sure.
Yep.
Hey, we qualified. Want to win the world today? Sure. All right, boom.
It worked.
Yeah.
There you go.
The secret
Perfect.
to success. Thanks, Andrew.
Kevin, Kayla, absolutely. Congratulations.
Hope to
Thank
see you guys later tonight for our last podium interview.
Absolutely.
I don't see any other.
Yeah, Jason, do you have that replay queued up? We can take a look at that and then maybe look at the results and then wrap this thing up.
Yep.
So here was how the race unfolded. Again, hot from the gun. You heard from the winning team, Kevin Gregory, Kayla Cittadino there. And it was chaos, just with how close these teams were through the first half of the race and then kind of the interweaving of some teams with the male athletes running, some teams with the female athletes running. It was mass chaos, and the strategy that we just heard Kevin talk about really paid off for them. So here's the rower. You can see just an example of it here where Kevin and Kayla were able to position themselves in the very front row and not having to do this dodging and jumping and cutting around other people. They pretty much consistently throughout the course of the entire race were able to stay in the front, and that really paid off for them. And once again, that front right position, no 180-degree turns, just claiming the most advantageous spot.
And from those two zones, Kevin had made up ground because they were behind in the previous zone.
And you can see it unfold the way that we talked about, where Brian Neely there in the black shorts standing up the middle. There were a lot of times he would come in first, but then Kevin would work faster through the station, allowing them to, again, maintain that prime front right position within the zone. And here was the game changer. So Amber Tate got this bike started, and then Grayson Kilgore and Kevin Gregory went to work. You can see Grayson front left, Kevin in the background. There was a switch.
Oh, here's the tag.
And yeah.
When they started.
And you can see there's Grayson and Kevin just absolutely getting after it. Presumably a sub 15 second for Kevin Gregory. And yeah, there was a transition there from the team in the middle. And by the time Brian Neely was getting cranked up, Kevin Gregory was almost coming to the end. And then just like that, Kayla back out on the run. And at that point, that was pretty much all she wrote, at least in terms of the win. I think Grayson Kilgore and Katie Duke did a great job just to try and do what they could to catch up, but really there was no catching Kevin and Kayla. They ended up, working through these box step overs and through the sled. They were, I think, 2 full or 1.5 lengths ahead on the sled push and pull, and really that was the story. You see them coming across the finish line there.
Plenty of time ahead in one of those burpees.
And this was exciting. We turned our focus over the last few stations of the first and second team, but here we go. Chelsea Grant and Pat Millington, and then Brian Neely and Amber Tate. We weren't sure what the count was. Amber was moving very well, but Chelsea Grant was able to finish right there and secure third place about 1.5 burpees ahead as Amber Tate sets it down on rep number 20, and they come across in fourth place. An absolutely phenomenal race here in the co-ed teams.
That was a really exciting finish.
Yeah.
Between
That was amazing.
That was third and fourth, right?
Yep. And, all of these races, right, we're hearing from the top competitors and the insight and the strategy and the analysis that we hear.
No. Do you want to? Do you want to interview them? I can't tell if they want to talk.
Yeah.
They act like they want to. I said yes, but they're not coming to sit down.
Sorry, we have already heard from them today, so
We do have about 30 minutes before the next race already.
yeah. So, all right, should we?
Yeah, we can go ahead.
We can wrap it here.
Let's look at the.
All right, here's a look at the schedule again. That was the 4th of 5 elite races today. 4:45 p.m. We will be back on for elite male team. So, yeah, back on the air in about 40 minutes. Keep it locked all week into the OCR report. The races are getting faster, they're getting tighter, and they're getting even more exciting. So we'll be back here in about 45 minutes. Tune in on the OCR report. We'll see you then.